coming along. We have Penny Melville Brown with us today, a blind baker who's going to be sharing her ideas and tips of different equipment that are useful if you are visually impaired and want to do some baking and cooking. As some of you may know, we do baking sessions via Zoom, which we created during lockdown, and they've been so successful we actually continue doing them every second Monday of the month with Penny, where you can bake along with us, or you can sit back and listen to Penny's lovely recipes and get some ideas and talk to other visually impaired people that are interested in baking. So without further ado, I will hand you over to Penny and let's get started.
Thanks, Zoe.
Do you want a mic?
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hello, how lovely to see you all. Well, I don't see you either, but I know you're out there. So would you keep breathing, coughing, spluttering, even laughing, because then I know you are still alive and haven't gone off to get your bus. I'm Penny Melville Brown, and I hope you've got some leaflets out there, and I apologise if they're not very accessible to you. Tough luck, I wasn't going to bring brailled ones, so you'll just have to listen to me now. I'm going to tell you a little bit about me and my background, and then my international prize-winning world tour. I'm going to tell you about some of the blind cooks I met around the world, and then I have got some bits of equipment here which I'm going to try and introduce you to, and some of it I'll pass around, so please can I have it back? Because these are really vital. Okay, so I was, back in the 1990s, I was a commander in the Royal Navy, and I was the first woman barrister in the Navy. And my eyesight started to deteriorate, and after a while I lost the sight in my right eye when I went back to work in the Navy. And then I lost the sight in my left eye and I had to stop driving, but I was still working in the Navy. And by 1999, I was trotting around in my commander's uniform with a white cane, but with my tricorn, my little pointy hat, under my arm, because I wasn't going to be able to salute anyone, because I couldn't see them, like I can't see you lot either. So then I spent 20 years, because I came out of the Navy and I was really worried about what was my income going to be? How was I going to pay my mortgage? Was I going to lose my house? And it was pretty devastating. So what I decided to do was set myself up as a disability consultant. What did I know about disability? Absolutely nothing. But, full of the old blag, being a barrister, you can just talk your hind legs off anything. So I did that for 20 odd years. And what I primarily did was help other disabled people to get back to work. So part of that was about working with government, trying to change policy about employment. I worked with the employment tribunals system, trying to get the judges and ACAS and people like that better able to support disabled people who are taking them to tribunals. I worked all sorts of places, private, voluntary, public sectors, trying to get them to be better. And in the end, I regret to say, I almost certainly failed, because I found that disabled people were absolutely dead keen to work. I met people who had been sending off hundreds of CVs, never heard a dicky bird. So I decided I'm going to do something different. And I started projects helping people with disabilities, all sorts of disabilities, to get back to work by becoming self-employed and starting their own businesses. And that was hugely successful. And we managed to get about 40% success rate, which, if you look at DWP figures and all that, was absolutely stonking. So I did that for 20 years, and I really loved doing it. But then I had a bit of a tumble with access to work. Do you all know access to work? Yeah, I could feel it, yeah. So I was looking for something new to do. Back in 2016, I was cooking, as one does, 50 Christmas cakes. You know, we all do that, don't we? Yes? Yes. Some of them were quite small, I have to confess. But I would make Christmas cakes for families and friends for their Christmas presents. You know, simple thing to do, and I didn't do the decorating, I can promise. Why not? Well, you know, they get a bit worried about the licky fingers all over it. Anyway, so I started baking blind, because I was going to sort of get some videos of me doing this, and my ambition was to change people's attitudes about what people with disabilities, what people with blindness, with visual impairment can do, because they are always underestimating us, patronising us, patting us on the head, you know, drives me mad. Anyway, so I started baking blind, and within about 2 months, I got this email, and it said, would you like to win a $25,000 prize?
Whoa.
Can you imagine? You know, was I going to say no? So yes, yes, yes. So it turned out to be a competition being run for blind people by Lighthouse, which is an organisation for blind people in San Francisco. And it was a worldwide competition. It all went on, and you had to do videos and project plans and all the rest of it. But by the end of it, there were about 200 entries from 27 countries, and I was one of the 3 lucky winners. So I popped over to San Francisco, because it wasn't just a prize of give me the money, it was what was I going to use the money for. So I decided I would do an international cooking tour around the world so that I could meet other blind people, meet professional chefs and home cooks, and video it all. And then I would have the story of what this blind person could do and what all those other blind people could do around the world. And funny old thing, why did I win this prize? Almost certainly because the prize was to commemorate a man called James Hallman. None of you will have heard of him. Back in the 18th century, so he was another naval officer who'd also lost his sight due to his time in service. He almost certainly had the same condition that I have, and he was supposed to retire with their equivalent of a war pension and just sit at Windsor Castle, where I gather they all went, you know, we've seen that recently, and do nothing. He travelled independently around the world and became one of the most famous travel writers of his generation. So I knew I couldn't just do baking blind at home, I had to go around the world, which I did. And so I went to San Francisco, and that's where I met my first blind cook. And that was a girl called Sydney. In a minute you'll understand why I lose things. So Sydney was working for Lighthouse, and she had her own training kitchen, and she was explaining how she taught lots of other blind people in this training kitchen how to cook. And I made honey cake there because I'd been taught it by Stephen Edwards, who is the MasterChef Professionals champion. And my cake was a complete disaster. And can I tell you, blind person and honey, fatal. Every surface, every tap, every knob, every utensil in this huge kitchen was sticky. And I was able to say, well, actually, I don't know how to clear up, so I'm going to leave you now. So, but, any excuse, you're right. But what was so super, that this was another blind person doing a really useful and successful job. And you'll hear this all the way through what I say today. I then went on to Costa Rica in South America, and I spoke, a bit like today, but not quite as interesting, to the National Association of Blind People in Costa Rica. And I explained what I was doing, blah, blah, blah. And there were so many people there who were just desperate, one, to get back to work, two, wanting to learn to cook, and three, having cooking tips to share. So we instantly, completely off the cuff, arranged that we would do a big cooking demonstration together at the capital's top cookery school. Unfortunately, well, perhaps for them, but more for me, unfortunately there was a thing called Hurricane Nate, which closed down the capital, and we had to cancel it all. But the enthusiasm from these people was just extraordinary. These are people who, like us, like you, really want to make their mark in life, not just be sitting at home, not just being inactive. They were all so keen. I went on then to Virginia Beach in America, and then I went to Chongqing in China. You say Chongqing in China? Yeah, got that one? It is the biggest city in the world, and probably not many people have heard of it. It has a population of about 37 million. So that's probably about half the population of the UK. Enormous place. And I had a wonderful time there cooking at the hotel with the professional chefs, and they were all terrified of having this blind person in their kitchens, in their professional kitchens, and, you know, would I cut myself, would I cut them? But actually once we got going, they understood that I knew a bit, and I'm not a professional chef, I knew a bit, and therefore they forgot that I was blind. Well, we brought in two blind women from Chongqing, and in China, their options for work are extraordinarily limited at the moment, and this was a few years ago now, and things will have improved, will be changing. But they always went into massage, and that's not the red light variety. This is the medical massage that is part of Chinese medicine. If you think about acupuncture, they're applying the same sort of processes, but with massage, hand put pressure, and all the rest of it. These two tiny girls, and you know, I'm about 5'7" or more. These two tiny girls were about up to my armpit, because in that culture they had had a lot of malnutrition in their youth, and so they were so tiny. But these girls were utterly determined, and one was able to do massage to children and babies. The other one was actually rather weaker, but she wasn't giving up. She decided that she would create her own business, and she was doing handicrafts and selling them in the markets in Chongqing so that she could be as independent as possible. So China was absolutely stunning, and I have to say Chongqing is probably the most exciting city in the whole world. But then I went on to Australia, and again I cooked with professional chefs there, and one of those professional chefs was Martin. I met him in Sydney, and he took me to his home, and we cooked there, and we did a rack of lamb, which he said was great for blind people, because he was blind too, because you could just run your knife between the bones, which is, you know, an easy way of doing all the carving. But Martin is an instructor, a cooking instructor at a culinary college, and he is still making his way, and he has a great website called Enabled Cooking, where he tries to share his expertise about cooking with visual impairment or other disabilities with everybody else. Are you still out there? Yeah, you've suddenly gone very quiet. I'm obviously not being funny, or... Okay, keep going. So, and then I cooked with Maribel in Melbourne. You have to say Melbourne, not Melbourne, otherwise they get very upset. And she's another blind cook, but she also is learning to teach, She does stuff for Vision Australia, for one of the American Blind Federations. She's a public speaker, she's been on radio, she's been on television. I'm just trying to emphasize to you again that blindness is not really a problem if you are determined to do something really good with your life. And let me take you to my very last example. So I then went on to Malawi in Africa, and we were at this very eccentric hotel in Lilongwe. And one of the groups I cooked with there was the albino group. Now, I don't know how familiar you are with albinism. You can imagine that in Africa, where most people have very dark skin, being an albino really makes you stand out, because even me with a suntan was darker than their very pale skin. So they have all sorts of problems. Is it good? Hello? Don't be silly. I don't care. We're all going to sit here and listen now. So these albino people have lots of problems because they are very prone to skin cancer and other skin problems. But that is absolutely nothing. Because they are white, pale, they are called spirits or ghosts. And there's all sorts of black magic things associated with them. So some of them, particularly out in the rural areas, are very ostracized. They don't get employment, they don't get education. Even worse, some of them are killed, and then their bones are dug up and exported for black magic rituals. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? And of course, they can't see very well. The paleness of their condition means that they have problems with their eyesight, so that you're not seeing well, and you are ostracized, not really helped, and you are liable to be physically attacked. Pretty grim. You know, we have life so good here. But one of the chaps I met there was Lazarus. Lazarus was a street musician. He had a wife and children, and he was working incredibly hard trying to get the band drum up. Yeah, got that one? Drum up a bit of, I know, dreadful, isn't it? Drum up a bit of music, and with a bit of money with his music. So you could see him on a street corner, perhaps, doing this. And how tough is that for somebody in life, that he has to, play music, which he loved doing, of course, to try and keep your family safe and fed. But great success. Madonna. Everybody heard of Madonna?
Yep.
Yep. Madonna heard about it. She made a film about him. So now Lazarus is an international star. So there are lots of things out there, even for people with the greatest struggles in life. If you are determined, motivated, and actually do something reasonably well. And even that for him with his very limited eyesight. So I say, don't be daunted by loss of eyesight. Be brave, be determined, be motivated, and there's all sorts of things you can do. So I'm not going to tell you much more about my travels, but you've got a leaflet, I hope. Have we got a leaflet?
Yes.
Okay, there is a book. I brought a few books here, if anybody's interested. If you want to go onto my website, there is a 5-minute video right at the start of that website, on the front page. And it tells you all about other things that I did on the tour. And it may sound a bit odd to you and to me about recommending a video, but I made this specially for a big conference I had to address in San Francisco, where lots of the audience were visually impaired people. So there's lots of music, lots of sounds, lots of talk throughout the video, so you can get a sense of that worldwide tour. If you're feeling mad, there's some books here at bargain basement prices, or you can get it online through Amazon and Kindle. With the Kindle, you can click to the videos, and there are, I think, well over 100 videos, and 50 of them are cooking demonstrations. And you can actually see and hear some of the people I've been talking about today. After the world tour, I was in France trying to find some new cooking opportunities in Europe. And I was involved in a car accident. And I actually, my neck was broken at C2. Do you know where C2 is? It's right at the very top. And if you break that, you're really at risk of dying or being paralysed from the neck down. I was in intensive care for 2 months. 6 weeks I was intubated in a coma, and I had another 3 months in rehabilitation. And I am still today learning how to walk, stand, and do all the things I love to do. So it's going to take probably at least 5 years for me to fully recover from that. But I'm really lucky. I didn't die. I am here today, enjoying, hello, this afternoon with you. But one of the problems that I also have is that it has impacted my memory. So I do forget words, so forgive me if I lose them from time to time. But as Zoe said, one of the things I've been doing during COVID and still going on are these monthly sessions. And what I'm trying to do is to convince you and demonstrate to you today that you don't, and I hope Cobalt aren't here, or Sight and Sound, or any of that lot up downstairs. I only use 2 accessible pieces of kit. Firstly, I've got here, somewhere, I've got scales. I have talking scales, and actually they're really useful. And let me just, if you want talking scales, I commend that you audition them first, because this one, power on. This one, where is it, Helen? Left. Much more polite. Much more polite. Yeah, how's that? Isn't that nice? Nice diction, really cheery. Yes, and he says goodbye. I just love him. So if you're going to buy scales, do audition them. And somewhere here, I have my sous chef with me. Alan. And this is my talking thermometer.
21.8 degrees Celsius.
We're warmer than you think, aren't we? Can I commend, this is a talking thermometer with a long probe on it, and I really commend this for checking whether your meat is cooked. I like meat to get to about 70 degrees at least. If I'm making jam or marmalade or anything like that, I want it to be at about 105, 106 degrees centigrade. If I am making a cake, you know how difficult it is when you can't see to check whether the damn thing's done. Pop that in, and if it's got to about 95 degrees C, it's done. You can take it out, switch the oven off, whatever you like. Ditto with bread. So I really commend that. You're also going to do your touch tests on the top, feel if it's crisp, springy, whatever. With the scales, I would suggest that you do not need talking jugs. I've had several talking jugs, and I've always given them away. If you remember that 100 millilitres of water weighs 100 grams, then you can just put a bowl, a jug, whatever you want on here, zero it off, add the liquid, and you're there. You can just do it by weight. There are some that also give you measurements in litres. Life's too short. I just do everything by grams. And I know that milk and oil weigh slightly different. I don't care. I just use it in grams. It makes it just so much more easy. I brought some of these bits of kit, and for those of you who've seen me on the cooking things, you will recognise some of them. Right, I've just done a blog, and so I've put a lot of the names of these items on the blog, so that you can find them if you want it, and that's on my website. Now here I have a little tiny, it's about the size, bigger than a 50p piece, but not much, little cylinder that clamps onto the work surface, and that I use for sharpening knives. Alan, would you like to just pass that round? I want all of these back. I'm just picking these things up at random. Here I have a carrot sharpener. This is like a great big pencil sharpener, but we'll take a carrot or a courgette. So I use these for courgettini. Darling, can I pass you that? Can I pass you that? All right. I use just an ordinary, old-fashioned potato peeler. I don't use fancy stuff, or even those Y-shaped ones. This is much easier, and I actually have a little sharpening stone so I can sharpen my potato peeler. Makes it more efficient, darling.
He's halfway round.
Oh God!
Hang on.
Who else can see to pass things around?
Thank you.
He's not coming back.
I'm coming back.
Right.
It's a
I have
relay.
a zester.
Are you ready?
Take the baton.
I have a zester. Does everybody know what a zester is?
Yes.
Yeah? Oh, you don't need to show them that then. They're all too smart.
Potato. Okay, here we are.
This is a zester that I use to take. Yeah. What else have I got here? If anybody likes cooking with cups, here is a set of cups. Can I explain these to you?
Yeah.
Have you all seen cups? And normally there are lots of little pots that all sit inside each other. So if you can't see, you have to count them. This set of cups, they're actually shaped. So the first one is a full round. A half cup is actually literally half a cup. So it's cut in half. Can I pass those round?
That's all right, I'll get it. You
Okay,
got-
darling.
I'll do that.
Thank you so much.
It's a pleasure.
I think probably the last thing I've got here, these things are all chatting away to me down here, is I have here a Joseph chopping board. This is my fruit board because the vegetable board is really impregnated with garlic and onion, and I didn't think you'd like that. But this is my fruit board, so I have, it has a rim all the way around one end. So that means I reduce how much I drop on the floor or on the kitchen table and all the rest of it. Thing I'm going to mention is my milestone. Do you know about a milestone?
Yeah.
I have one that's invaluable. And when I'm cooking, I do not want to be going back to my laptop to have Jaws read me my recipe. You know, every time I go and find something, I have to go into another room to find it. So on my milestone, I can save a text version of my recipe, and then I attach it to my apron, and I can hear it all the way through as I make the recipe. Can I offer you some more things? If you go to my website, there is a free downloadable Christmas recipe booklet. If you just go onto the recipe pages or the Baking Blind page of my website, it comes down as a Word document, so you can make it any version you like, do it in large print, you can have your screen reader read it. And on that document, there are links to lots of videos of me doing the cooking, often with open sight, a few from my YouTube channel. On my YouTube channel, there are lots and lots more videos of me cooking, comic relief, or wherever. And we've got all the recipes on the website too. So what you can see there is, this is what a blind person can do. And you can see some tips about how to make the dishes, and you can find the recipes.
That's a zestier or original potato we're going to use.
Is anybody listening to me? I give up. Hello. Okay, our next Baking Blind session with Open Site is at 10:30 on Monday the 10th of September. October. Did I tell you about that accident?
You were testing to see if we were listening.
I was, thank you. Monday the 10th of October, we're going to do a frangipane pudding, which is gluten-free. It's dead easy. It was supposed to be with raspberries, but I'm not sure whether we'll still be able to get fresh raspberries now. Well, I would put some soft fruit, perhaps pears, perhaps peaches, cherries if you stone them, all sorts of things. So I hope you will all come and join me, or you can catch up on it on the Open Site YouTube channel. The recipes we publish, and they're all available to you. And I'll probably do another booklet at the end of this year with links to all the videos. I blog every week, and so there are always more recipes on my blogs, on Facebook, on Open Site, wherever. Are there any questions? That shut you up, didn't it? Oh, ho, ho. Full of that, but not talking to me. Yes.
It's Clark here. The talk of thermometer, roughly how much is one bite?
I think it was between 20 and 30 pounds. And I've had that one for years. It travelled around the world with me.
Excuse me.
Yes. Is somebody going?
I brought them all back.
You.
Paddy, when did you actually win this competition and do your travelling?
I did it in 2017. I know it's a very long time ago. Yeah. I've been writing the book while I recovered.
Not long when you're out.
Yes.
It's £12.99.
Next,
Hey,
Gary.
when are you going to do your autobiography?
Well, I've talked about me in the book. So in the book there are pictures of me in my Wren officer's uniform outside the Old Bailey. There's pictures of me absolutely zonked out in a coma in the hospital. And there are, if anybody wants to go onto YouTube, you can, follow all those long videos. They're not that long, but they cover a long period of time. But what I think I come back to my main message today, which is don't be miserable about losing your sight. You can still do all sorts of things. You can still work. You can still be productive at home. You can still do virtually anything apart from brain surgery. That's only until they get the robotics right. We just need to have a bit of help and have the right attitude and a bit more encouragement. So I hope this has been useful to you. I am still here if you want to talk to me, ask me questions, give me well, no, I won't say that. So I hope it's been interesting for you this afternoon.